even if you've already read it.
I got the invite. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, awesome, great. All right, so I guess we'll kick off. I just wanted to thank Melissa for presenting today. I'm very excited about this session. And thank everybody for joining. Like I said, I just threw some links in there for the book club, the feedback survey that we shared last month. So if there's things you're interested in, I just saw a kitty cat. I have 4. And a link to the LinkedIn group. Also, I didn't add it in here, and I'm going to be publishing it soon, but a lot of these sessions, we have taken recordings of them, and I'm setting up a YouTube channel so people can look back at it. So I'm hoping everybody joins that. I'm just going to do a few more zhuzhes to it and get my organizing crew's approval, and then I'll share it with everyone. But I think that's about it for me for an intro. Melissa, you ready to go?
Ready, I'm waiting.
Awesome. All right, it's all yours. I'm going to go on mute and hide and eat lunch.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever everybody's based. Where I am, it's about 5 o'clock. I just finished work for the day. So how are we all feeling? Anyone wants to say? Energized? Excited to learn about using Power Platform for charities?
Yeah.
If he's waving, I'll take it. So my name is Melissa Hale. For those of you who have not met before, lovely to meet you all. And I hail from, that wasn't a pun on my last name, by the way. I hail from Liverpool in the UK. So in my 9 to 5, I work as a Power Platform consultant for an amazing, I see the laughing, for an amazing company called Curve I can't speak today, I'm sorry guys. Curve Digital. They're absolutely wonderful, and they're one of the reasons that I get to do these really cool things and help out with charities that we're going to talk about today. So I'm really, really grateful you guys have come to listen to my presentation about this passion project of mine. And for those of you who don't know, I actually only joined the community about a year ago. It's actually been 1 year exactly since I did my first talk on this in Manchester, which is another city nearby me. So it's really nice to sort of come full circle and get to do it a year later as well. I was also recently awarded the Microsoft Rising Star Community Award at the South Coast Summit this year, and I also was awarded with one of the 100 Women Tech Awards by We Are the City, so it's been a really, really awesome year. And anyway, enough self-indulgent, let's get talking. Oh, sorry guys, my screen record not playing ball. Can you all see that? I see nodding. Perfect.
Yes.
Awesome. So I know I said enough self-indulgence, but just very quickly, I do think it's important to point out that I, again, while I've only been in the community for a year, I actually only came into tech about 3 years ago. Actually 2 years ago, if you read that. So I started off by doing a university degree in zoology. I had great visions of being either a vet or working in a zoo. And to pay for that, I worked as a security guard on nightclubs in Liverpool. I don't recommend it, but it gave me a lot of conflict resolution skills that have come in pretty handy in consulting. I've also worked as a research technician on a pig farm. That was an interesting development. Again, gave me a lot of research and analytical skills. I also make a fantastic cup of coffee because I worked as a barista for just under a year. And then I went on the path of trying to do a PhD in biology. I don't know if any of you come from the biological sciences or academic background trying to do a PhD, but it is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And about halfway through, I realized that I wasn't really enjoying it. I loved sort of sitting down at my computer and playing with art and graphs and making these really cool visualizations, but the science wasn't really what I was in for anymore. So I made the really scary decision after like 10 years in academia to basically quit. And with the help of some really amazing friends and ex-colleagues now, but colleagues at the time, I went and made the decision to join a boot camp. 3 months into that boot camp, I was lucky enough to get my first tech job, where I was working with what I like to call Power Platform if you were to buy it on Temu. So it was a Power Platform knockoff. And then a year later, I found my way into Microsoft Power Platform, and I have never looked back. It's been the best thing that I ever did. So I'm also going to ask a question to you guys now, because we're going to get into the actual charity side of things. If this wants to work. Perfect. So What proportion of children in the UK are currently at risk of weight-related diseases? If anyone would like to hazard a guess, I'll give you some options. We've got 5%, got 10%, and we've got 20%. Anyone want to hazard a guess which number we think is closest to the real number?
20.
Got a 10, got a 20, 20, another couple of seconds, 10, 20, 20. Okay, super. So before I give you guys the actual answer, I want to show you something. And I'm going to hope my presentation doesn't let me down here. So these are all news lines, journal articles, headlines from the last sort of 4 or 5 years. You can see the little yellow bars to say ones that are out of date. Well, not out of date, they were still relevant. What's really shocking about those is they were not hard to find. I think they probably took me 10 minutes when I started building this presentation with the help of the organisation I work with. There's a lot more if you look out there. But children are not doing so well, at least in the UK. I know it's a different story in different countries, but this will focus on the UK. To sort of give it a bit more scope, I went and found an actual study from March 2017 that was done by the government. So in March 2017, and this was pre-COVID, they found 28% of children aged 2 to 15 were overweight or obese. Younger generations were becoming more overweight at earlier ages. So we're looking at sort of toddlers and preschool ages rather than sort of later on in high school. For every 100 4 and 5-year-olds in England, 13 of them are overweight and 9 of them are obese. So that gives us 22% technically. So I appreciate those numbers don't quite line up. Scientific studies. These numbers really horrify me because these kids don't have a lot of control over their environment. These kids don't have a lot of control over what they're eating, and they're the product of the system they're in. The reason that I point out that it's 2017 is it's thought, and there is research to back up the fact that COVID made this so much worse, up to 4 or 5 times worse, because kids were stuck inside, they couldn't go outside, access to food was limited, things like that, or access to healthy, nutritious food was limited if you guys went to the supermarkets in that period. Another study, I wouldn't be a past scientist if I didn't bring out studies. So this was done by the National Child Measurement Programme, again, sponsored by the government here in the UK, and I went and made a chart about it. And it showed that in 2019-2020, we were looking about 10% of 5-year-olds were considered obese. So they had BMIs of, I believe it's 25 and above. And in 2020 to 2021, so only a year later, that's risen to 14.4. So let's call it 14 and a half. In 11-year-olds, it was 21%, went to 25.5%. In a 12-month period, that went up 4.5%. This was 5 years ago. If we were to, and forecasting is very complicated, but if we were to imagine that that compounded over time, we'd be looking at 25.5% over the last 5 years. Sorry. Yes, 25.5%. I had to check my maths. We're taught not to make assumptions when you do science, but for the sake of argument, I wanted to illustrate what that might look like. So that gives us 46% of year 6 children, or maybe about 10 to 11-year-olds, and 40% of kids just going into reception or kindergarten, who would be obese and overweight and facing the medical ramifications of that. It was also really upsetting when I read the review of this paper that the children who were living in the most deprived areas, so the ones that had the least, were actually the ones who were twice as likely to suffer from this. That really hit home for me because, again, these kids don't have a lot of control over what's going on, and that's heartbreaking. Okay. Anyone heard of a UPF before? The UPF is an ultra-processed food. They've been sort of all over the headlines, at least here, for the last couple of years. It's very important to say that there is not one singular definition, but the most common is from a classification from Brazilian scientists called the NOVA classification. And it describes them as formulations of ingredients, mostly for industrial use, and created by a series of industrial processes. Basically, if it's got additives, emulsifiers, and stabilizers, things you wouldn't normally find if you were to pull it out of the ground, or you wouldn't find it in your kitchen cupboard, it's probably ultra-processed. So, for example, if you went and got some sweets, well, obviously sweets, if you went and got some sweetened cereals, fizzy drinks, chocolates, low-fat spreads, even some protein yogurts are considered a UPF. It's a very wishy-washy definition. So why am I telling you about these kids' obesity rates? Why am I telling you about UPF? Well, as I just showed you over the last few years, kids are getting sicker in the medical sense. And while it's not just one cause, there's lifestyle, there's environment, there's genetics, scientists are increasingly pointing to UPFs as a major factor. And these foods are high in calories, low in nutrients, and they're making society as a whole sicker, but especially children. And it's kids who are paying that price. So research has shown that children who are overweight or obese earlier in life are more likely to remain so into adulthood, and that compounds the health risks over time. And it's not really hard to consider. A lot of us work in the technology industry, and day-to-day life is getting more online. Life is becoming more digital. There's also the cost of living crisis here in the UK that makes nutritious food a lot harder to access. Ultra-processed foods are cheap and convenient. They've become a go-to option, and they're taking a serious toll on our health. I promise I'm not going to keep banging on about studies because it gets really dry and boring. But one study actually revealed that these foods make up to 52% of the average Briton's diet. So 52% of what somebody eats here in the UK is considered an ultra-processed food. Some of you might notice that this study dates back to 2017. Oh, saying that, I've not actually put the study on. That was bad of me. I will share it in the chat or after the meeting if anybody wants it, if you want to read this. But updating the study hasn't really been a national priority, given everything else that's gone on. But this is from the British Medical Journal. And if you just look at what I've highlighted here, it's basically the conclusion shows that a diet heavy in UPFs is considered, one second, let me double check, moderately or lowly, highly associated with these following conditions. And I'm not going to read them all out, but for example, mental health conditions like sleep and anxiety, even depression. You're looking at increased asthma and wheezing. You're looking at hypertension, cardiovascular disease, overweight and obesity, type 2 diabetes, and generally overall mortality is increasing. This is something I added in for a recent conference at ESPC, and it's called Yay or Nay, and I want to see if you guys can spot the UPFs. So, is it a UPF? Just put a Y or an N in the chat if you'd like to participate. Yep, very good. So, potato chips and grenade Oreo bar. I kind of gave it away earlier when I was talking about protein products. Oranges. Very good, they're not UPFs. And bit of a trick one, oat milk. Yes, so I did this one at ESPC and people actually said oat milk wasn't a UPF. But some brands like Oatly are considered a UPF because they have emulsifiers in them. If you were to get a similar product that only has a couple of ingredients, I believe Plenish is the alternative I talk about, which only has oat, water, and I think salt. Doesn't taste great, but it's not considered a UPF. Now, why am I telling you this? And I just wanted to make the point that not all UPFs are easy to spot, although you guys spotted them pretty spot on. They're not all made equal. Just because you have Oatly, for example, I have it in my coffee right here, it doesn't mean you're going to be unhealthy, and it doesn't mean it's bad for you. It's about, the proportion and moderation. It's really important to say that UPFs are not the enemy, and they can be enjoyed as a part of a balanced and healthy lifestyle. When I give this talk, I think a lot of people think I'm attacking people's dietary choices, and that's definitely not what I'm here to do. I'm just here to, show you the science and then show you what this amazing charity do that we're going to talk about now. So you've got the context. Why does this matter, and where does Power Platform come in? So, Collaboration for Kids, or CFK, are an amazing charity. And these guys are absolute superstars. I can't begin to tell you how amazing these people are and what they're trying to do here in the UK. They're a group of incredible volunteers who are working towards a goal of healthier and happy children in the UK, and they do it all off their own back for nothing in return. As I've shown you the data and the stats, the UK has a really big problem, and it's the kids who are suffering and they're getting sick. And while it's not it's not just UPF's problem, there is a bigger problem to tackle in society. That's definitely where these guys have decided to start. And they're spending less time than being active, they're spending a lot of time on screens, and there's a lot of other compounding issues. But their goal overall is to support families and children. So it's not just the children, it's also their families, and to help sort of teach, what is good nutrition, giving them support, giving them, support groups, helping them, find ways that they can financially afford these things, giving them initiatives and activities. There's an initiative at the moment, I believe, called Project Phoenix, which is all about helping them set up sports groups that don't actually cost the schools any money because they don't have any money in reserve to pay for it. And if anyone's ever tried to set up sort of after school clubs, it can be kind of expensive. So it's a really cool initiative they're doing, and that's going really well at the moment. But it's all about helping them. It's not about guilting them or making them feel bad. It's all about helping them choose healthier and better options for them and their children. So CFK is actually one of the 3 charities I've been supporting, just in case you see some other acronyms on here. So CFK sits underneath the Collaborative Health Community, so CHC. And they also have a sister charity called FAS, which is Food Addiction Solutions. So just if we see some weird acronyms, or if I say a different acronym, they're all kind of under the same tether, but CFK are the one that I initially joined. So what's this got to do with Microsoft? Back in September 2024, I was scrolling through LinkedIn, drinking my coffee with my Oatly milk, and I heard the little beep, and I saw a new message who'd popped up, and it was from this lovely lady named Jenny Longsmith. That is actually the message. And she was reaching out to me because CFK needed help with their online digital space and their Microsoft ecosystem. They didn't have anybody in the sort of Microsoft technical realm. The CEO or their founder, I think it's technically the same, their CEO had great visions of this SharePoint site where everybody could go and be collaborative and sort of celebrate their wins. And I had a meeting with Jenny and the IT manager, Rick, and they, really sold me on this idea that these people were really trying to make a difference. And I knew that I wanted to be a part of what they were doing. So we set up a meeting with their founder, who's called Heidi Glover, amazing lady, highly recommend checking her out. And we worked out the issues. So I remember that she gave me this sort of PowerPoint page with all these pictures on it that she wanted. And it just took me back to every brief I've ever been to in a consulting room. And it was, it was really good to see her excitement, but sort of having to work her through, okay, this is what we can do with a SharePoint, this is what we can't do. And they were some of the most receptive, I don't like the word clients, but they were really receptive to everything I said, which made the whole process great. So yeah, the issues that they had was they didn't have anything. They had Microsoft Teams, that was it, and emails. They didn't have any sort of collaborative space, somewhere they could put their documents, somewhere that they could, share news or things like that. One of the other really big things they had was they had a really big burden of administrative processes. So everything was done manually by volunteers. Every email, every newsletter, every onboarding, everything got done by somebody sat at their computer. There was a lot of bottlenecks, and for any of you that work in corporate or just in general companies, I don't know if you've ever had that frustration of you're waiting for Tom in sales to get back to you, and maybe it takes him a couple of hours. Well, imagine if Tom only worked every 3rd week under the full moon. That's kind of what working in a charity organization's like, because people come as and when they can. So these bottlenecks were really bad, and they were causing, projects and initiatives to get delayed. And again, without laying on thick, these projects and initiatives are actually helping children's lives, families' lives. So that just didn't sit right with me. And I really wanted us to get past that. They had no document management system. It was very much the Wild West. And I should know because I worked at a horse camp in Texas. But the folders and the files and naming conventions, everything was a mess. They couldn't find anything. There was a lot of resistance to change as well for some of the stakeholders. I should also point out, in this voluntary organization, especially, a lot of the volunteers are not necessarily the generation that grew up with computers, and I found they can be a little resistant to change sometimes, or, they've got a system that works for them and they don't really want to change it. It did get better with time, and I think it was all about taking them on the journey with us and, really having them involved in the conversations. But it did take me back to the day my dad first got an iPhone and having to teach him how to use it. It was painful, but we got there in the end. It's also been really good to hear everyone's ideas in the charity. So I go to their monthly meetings with the stakeholders, and I see what projects they want to roll out, and we see how we can best support them in the IT team. So This is the SharePoint that we built them. As you can tell, I'm not a UI or UX expert, but I set this up as a hub site, so it would be easier to manage for all the departments once we had that one central location. So we have a CHC, a CFK, and an FAS site now all attached to this. We chose to go for a communication site over a team site because of the advanced customizability and the vision the founder wanted to be vibrant and collaborative space rather than just sort of a team space, which again, I walked them through the differences. It also allowed us to make some, specific permission groups around the SharePoint down to a granular level. And so that's kind of see if you can see where it says team workspaces restricted. There's basically a link to each of their team spaces individually. And if you're not in that team, you can't access it. So that was helpful for them as well to try and actually get them to go into the site rather than just using their own personal laptops. So this should be a nice little video now. Wonderful. So this is their site. There is still a little bit of filler content on there because we're waiting for some of the departments to get back to us about what they want here. So if you see link 1, 2, 3, but we've got some embedded videos of conferences they've done. We've got the team workspaces. Like I said, you can't get into them unless you're actually in that team in the system. The way we do things is where we hold our policies, org charts, goals and strategies. There's the projects we talked about. There's the Phoenix project we talked about. And again, people from the team can go and have a look at those projects and what they're doing. This is one of my favorite parts, which was the notice board, which the lady in Marcoms actually was really excited about. And we set up a newsletter archive for the year's worth of newsletters. And this was really good for people joining the team late like me. So I joined September last year. September 2024. And this would have been a really cool feature for me to go back and, see what was done over the last few months, what these guys are about, what are some of their wins. So new joiners now can do that, which I'm just a big fan of personally. And I like a newsletter. Okay. This one, a little bit outdated now, but when I first started doing this, I was still pretty new to the SharePoint game. And I was doing everything with PMP scripts. I'm not a coder. I'm not a pro coder. And PMP scripting was not fun. So Microsoft actually introduced the SharePoint Brand Center in April 2024. I didn't find out about it until probably February 2025. So I did have to go and redo this. But it basically allowed you to basically build out your site branding for each of your sites. And I think this is great, especially for a charity organization that doesn't necessarily have an IT person. Because if anybody leaves or if they need to redo this, it's much easier to show them the site branding center than it is explain the PMP scripting. Not to say the PMP scripting is, they can't do that. It's just a lot easier for them and it's a lot less mental load. So this is probably one of my favorite features on the SharePoint side. Then we've got the FAQ list that we built out for them. So again, when I was talking about those bottlenecks, if you've got a question for Tom in legal, but Tom only works every 3 weeks, you might be waiting a while to hear back from them on Teams or via email. So we wanted to build this frequently asked questions library. So it's just a SharePoint list that we've put some formatting on top of. And basically they can search for questions. So if their question is about converting to a PDF, if their question is about where do I save this, if their question is about how do I set my profile picture, which is actually, we'll talk about that later on. But they can search here and hopefully find it because the SharePoint search feature. We also color coded it, and I believe green is anything to do with the intranet, blue is to do with interventions, and pink is to do with interventions, and blue is anything sort of miscellaneous technical, so Microsoft Teams, for example. Again, this is just something that makes it a lot more visual for them. It's a bit more exciting for them rather than just a bog standard SharePoint list. So this was a big hit with the team as well for very little technical effort. Oh, the bit I love the most. So the Power Automate here. I'd really like to show you some examples of how I've tried to make some of the charity processes smoother and quicker. Because when time is your most precious resource and you're trying to make a real world impact, you really shouldn't be doing repetitive things like sending out emails if you can avoid it. I also went to a conference earlier last year and I was told that a presentation is not a presentation without a quote. So time is what we want most, but it's what we use worst by William Penn. It's one of my favorites. So the help request. So I'm going to give you guys a scenario that the charity have faced, and then I'm going to show you how we mitigated it, or at least tried to. So whenever a person needs help with an IT issue, so if I'm Barbara in the intervention team and I've got a question for somebody in the IT team, I might not know the IT team because, again, volunteers rotate quite frequently, so people come and go as they can and as they have time. So I won't necessarily know who to email or who to ask in Teams. So I'll probably go to my department lead, and that department lead will then message the IT department lead, who's a lovely man named Rick. He'll then delegate the issue to myself or a lovely man named Tim, and one of us will respond to their department lead, and then it'll go back. So it's kind of like a really long game of Chinese whispers for the sake of a question. For example, how do I convert this to a PDF? I did some rough maths on this. Obviously, every query is different, but let's say it takes 2 to 3 days for a response, which honestly is being a bit generous, and we get 10 issues a month. Every month, that's using up 20 to 30 days of time, technically, and 240 to 360 days. That's a lot of wasted time on a question because the process doesn't fit the needs or how people work in this situation. So we built the Get Help page. So they get to this as one of the pages on their intranet. At the top, they have something called how-to videos, which is a library we populated with sort of general tech questions, things like profile pictures, setting email signatures. I can't think of another off of my head, but I think we've got 6 or 7 now, and we keep adding to it as people ask us questions. So they'll come to this page. If they can't find their answer on the how-to videos or the FAQ, which you'll see a little bit further down in a second, then they go to submit a help request. When they submit a help request, that's going to open up a Microsoft form that we've built. Oh, okay, I can't pause it. But that's going to open up a Microsoft form that they can then fill out. The Microsoft form asks them for their name, their email address, to rank their issue. So is it a technical difficulty, a new feature request, or other? Longest I've ever seen myself write out my email address. But they'll tell us what the issue is or what type of issue it is. They'll give us an urgency rating and then a brief description. They'll then submit that. And then we have a Power Automate flow in the back that grabs that response, writes it all into a SharePoint list with the metadata, and then emails us at the IT help desk. We have an IT help desk email. Oh, I have got that. Have I got that on here? No. But you can see it. So from my side, if I was in the IT team, I can go to this library, which is called IT help requests. It logs all the requests, and you can see it here. So we've got their urgencies, their statuses, resolved by, and resolution email sent. So basically, either me or Tim or Rick will come into here, fill in our response. We can also get back to the person individually because we have their email address. And we've also got a log if there's any sort of pain points around a specific issue. So for example, maybe a lot of people are struggling with adding a notice board feature. Maybe people are struggling with how to add content to the department page, or maybe a lot of people are struggling with a new IT policy, such as, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. But whatever issue they're having, we can sort of review them on a monthly basis as an IT team, which again, our founder was quite happy with because it gives us a source of truth for that. So it saves time and prevents more issues in the future. And this is just a very quick review of the flow. It's nothing spectacular. It's put in a try catch for error handling, grabs all their information, writes it to a SharePoint list, and then sends an email to the output is the shared email that I talked about. And then I've got it to myself because this was when I was testing it that I recorded this. So we've estimated that that saved at least 2 to 3 days, a couple of times a month. And again, people have been much happier with the speed at which we've got back with technical issues. Okay, so another system that we've got, or that we did have in the charity, was when new starters joined. Like I mentioned, with charities, people sort of ebb and flow as life commitments come and go. So it's quite odd to have somebody long term. So we have people sort of join for a couple of months, leave, maybe come back, and it can be a hard system to stay on top of, especially at the moment we don't actually have a HR team. So we've got people who are sort of sticking in and helping where they can. But let's say you're a new person who's approached the charity, or the charity's approached you and asked for some help, and you want to join. The IT lead, Rick, needs to send an email to HR for their information. HR then needs to locate and send the information. And like I mentioned, with a lack of document management, that can sometimes be a little bit long-winded and tricky. Once HR has located it and sent it, a IT lead needs them to then create a new user in the admin center, and the IT lead needs to email the person on their personal email to set them up with their new charity email tenant. Again, estimations on this one was about 60 minutes per volunteer. Let's say we have 3 to 5 people join. It really does vary. 1 month we had nobody join, 1 month we had 10 people join, so it's hard to gauge. But let's go with 3 to 5. That takes 3 to 5 hours a month out of somebody's time, 36 to 60 hours a year that could be spent doing something that could actually impact the child or family's life. So again, what we did here was we built a Microsoft form, and the idea was the form was sent out to the new starter. They would fill it in. It would then be stored as a SharePoint list, and then our IT lead could access that list. And in the sense of, for the sake of security, we made sure that only the IT lead and the HR lead could access that. And we also only collect I think it's their birthday, their phone number, and their personal email address to set them up. So very easy flow to build and saves 60 hours a year for our IT lead to actually do something much more productive. This is an example of our new starter list. So everyone gets an ID, we get their name, we get their role, which department they're in, email addresses, and their start date. This is also useful to see sort of where people are distributed within the charity. And then lastly, this was a very recent initiative that our founder was excited about. So this is from the food addiction solution FAST side. They asked for my help in the Power Automate. So food addiction solution goes into live clinics and helps people who are suffering from food addiction, just for some context. And they go into these clinics and they are basically asking people questions on what their food addiction triggers are, where the, how are they feeling in the moment? Is there anything, symptoms, things like that. So these are quite sensitive documents. Previously, they would go in with a paper survey to these clinics in person. And they'd wait for the recipient to complete the form, or maybe they take it away with them and mail it back in. Very old school. Forms would get lost, forms never get received if we mailed them out to people. And then even if we do get them back, data needs to be manually copied into an Excel sheet by a volunteer. So this was not a great system in terms of time. We honestly don't have an estimate for how much time was used here because there's just too many variables, but this is time that could be spent much better. So between myself and a very talented Power BI engineer that we've got on the team, we built a flow. And again, it's going to start with the Microsoft form. So the Microsoft form gets mailed out as an EOTI link to any of the volunteers who want to fill it in. They then get a series of questions. They fill in those questions, and the questions populate a SharePoint list. Again, that SharePoint list is locked down so that only the initiative lead and I believe the founder can access it, and the Power BI analysis, because he goes away and does the analysis on a monthly basis. So again, grabs all those question details and then sends an email with a link to the item to the Power BI engineer to let him know that a new one has been added. So again, these are not complex flows at all, but they're saving tens of hours, hundreds of hours. Again, we can't predict with this one. Oh, there we go, perfect. And then lastly, recently I was elected as the AI lead for CFK, which is a very exciting time. For anyone who has seen some incredible talks on Copilot Studio, ways we can use it in our day-to-day life, I think it's very easy for people to use AI not safely and not responsibly, not from malice and not from a place of not wanting to, but from a place of we've been given the tools, but we haven't been told what they can and can't do. So I've seen a lot of talks about responsible AI recently and safety, and I had a horrible, horrible conversation with somebody recently at the charity who had told me that they had put some personally, I can't remember the word now, PPI, personally identifiable information, that's it, PII, into, I believe it was ChatGPT. and I had a little heart attack. And I had to remind myself that, you know, I work in a tech world and people have told me from day one that that's bad. So I had to explain to them, or I chose to explain to them, that while I understand why they did it, I wanted them to know that that was perhaps not the safest thing to do. And in future, make sure that you're not using PII, make sure you're not putting anything into it that, you know, you wouldn't tell a third connection on LinkedIn kind of thing. We're really focused at the charity now, because everyone uses their own devices and we have very lax DLP policies, that we want everybody to use one tool, and we want everybody to have a sort of stringent policy in the case of what can and can't go into it, what can and can't be generated, what can be used internally and externally. And I'm really excited to be working with the founder and another really, really good engineer who's based out in Egypt, who does AI consultancy. So we're really looking forward to championing that and making people feel more empowered with AI. Next steps then. So that's kind of where we're at now. Things that we're working towards are populating those department pages. It still looks a little bare. And now that we've got that buy-in and people are actually excited about it, we can start getting it to be more useful for them. We really want to scope out a document management system. It is still a bit of the Wild West out there, and we're finally getting to a place where people are on board with it and categorizing what they want and need. We've talked about creating an hours available app as a proof of concept, although the licensing change from Microsoft the other day might have put an end to that. If anyone saw, the paper app has now gone, so we might be shelving that. And we're also going to be running some AI adoption workshops in the next few months as well, to get people comfortable with AI safety and responsibility, prompting, and use cases that are, you know, good for AI. Key takeaways, because I realise I've been speaking for a very long time now. Absolutely anybody can leverage Power Platform to create a meaningful solution. I started this 3 years ago. I by no means know that much about it. I very much stumbled my way through, and I've learned a lot about what Power Automate can do, what Power Apps can do, model-driven apps can do, but seeing it actually have an impact in that space is better than any project I've ever worked on. And seeing how it's helped them and empower them and let them spend more time doing the incredible things they do. And I really, if anybody takes anything away from today, it's that I ask you to go away and look at challenges in and around your space and what matters to you, and think about how tools, not only Power Platform, but what are tools and skills you have that you can go out and help people with. And one more quote to end on: no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. I was a big Aesop fable fan as a kid, so I truly believe that, and I really cannot illustrate how important it is that one little act of kindness can make a massive difference. And, you know, for the couple hours a week that I spend on this, it really does have an impact. And yeah, I really believe in a community this big and this talented. If we all went out and did one good thing for a year, you know, one good thing a year, there's just no way of telling how far that would spread. So thank you for listening to me ramble for the best part of an hour. This is where you can find me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you all, and if anyone wants to talk about it or ask how they can get involved in this charity or any others, please do reach out to me.
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
It's amazing how like simple little flows just make things so much easier for people too. So
Really simple, like they are
yeah.
so simple.
I had to do one during COVID for our COVID app. I actually created a Power Platform. And then I did another one with a form just like yours for my husband's company, because they didn't really have anybody to help them, and they're like smaller. So awesome. So everybody's welcome to come on screen, come off chat, ask questions, whatever you'd like to do. Otherwise, we can give you guys some more time back to your day. Everyone's quiet today.
That January lurgy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Either that or everyone's too polite to say they can't understand my accent.
Your accent is fine. What are you talking about?
I just
Maybe I'm
joke because
just
everyone's
used to
like, "You're not
different
from Liverpool. You don't have the accent."
Oh, I can hear it. Just a little bit. It's okay. I get a Boston accent sometimes, so.
Right, I'm from New Jersey, so try being in the South and you're from New Jersey, and people are like, "What is that word you just said?" Water. Yes, it has a D in it. I don't know what you mean by this T. Well, there's no T in water. What? Water? Well, no, water.
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 And I'm from the Philadelphia area, so it's growing up. So people are like,
We see.
I've actually had people come up to me like weird place, Philadelphia. I'm like, oh my God, yes, originally, but not now. Yes.
Oh man. It looks like
I have a.
Kathy has,
Oh,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry. Looks like Kathy has a question in the chat asking,
Oh.
can you talk more about the change management process the group used to help people transition?
I would absolutely love to. Could you give me a bit more context what you mean by change man, like when we implemented the SharePoint and getting people on board with, I said the document management hasn't happened yet. That's been the biggest change, I would say.
Oh, I bet. She doesn't say it, but I'm guessing that may be it.
Yeah, I think. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm
So,
also sorry, I'm also curious to see like how you took changing people from sending an email as opposed to filling out a form, like how that felt, because I know that, I've tried it in the past and people revert back to emails.
yes, it's people still do send the odd email, and it's a lot of, I think it's just taking people on that journey and sort of making them feel included. If you just kind of put a change on someone, I haven't found anyone yet that likes that. They like to feel like they're being listened to. They like to feel like they're included. So yeah, I think we've done a couple of workshops sort of on lunchtimes that people have been able to follow along. We've had sort of drop-ins with the IT team. We've spoken to all the department heads. We've got some recorded sessions for people. And when people do send an email, obviously we still go through the process. So they'll message their department lead, they'll message Rick, they'll message me. And we usually just try and very gently with the response mention, oh, by the way, we're sorry this was so delayed. For future questions, here's a quicker way to get to us. Mm-hmm. So it's not really like a bad, no, you did it wrong. It was a, oh, do you want to get us faster? This is another way. So just gentle and slow.
I manage our IT support team. So exactly
Similar.
that. That's exactly what I do. I'm like, I had one the other day. Oh, how do you know where this email flows to? I'm like, and I forgot about it. And I'm like, hey, if you wanted this answered faster, you should probably put it through support, because then you have like 4 other really intelligent people who can answer that question for you.
Yeah, you triple your chances of if you use the flow we built, there's 3 times the number of people who might catch it. So
Exactly. And it
yeah.
turned out to be a DNS outage was causing the whole thing. So it's actually really was like if he had put it in the day before, like we would have had this fixed yesterday.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that's exactly the same strategy I take, is I'm like, oh, and another good one is like your issue is now documented. So like if this happens again, then we have the history. If you just tell me over email, like it's gonna get lost.
It's gone. Yeah.
It's
and that's
gone.
what that list is for. So we have those like pain points, like, oh, have we seen something like this before? Is this the same user? Is this like, is a department having issues? So data is gold. I love data. I love
Absolutely. Maybe give you counter with that and make some more like, oh, okay, so there's logic behind putting this in the right way versus just sending an email or a IM.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hope.
We can only hope. And, people are people at the end of the day, and just being kind and patient, really.
Absolutely.
We'll all get there.
Oh, Kathy's back. Her camera was being a brat. So.
Oh, no.
It all crashed. So.
Yeah, I know you asked your question and you said yes, and then you disappeared.
Yeah. I think it didn't like me transitioning from my avatar back to my camera.
How dare it, teens.
Which, by the way, I'll be doing the February presentation about Microsoft's new immersive events in Teams, which lets you show up as an avatar in your virtual space and walk around. And
that sounds cool.
Goodness. Yeah, and I was actually going to bring that up right before we wrapped up, that our next month's speaker is in attendance as well. So I'll be sending out all the info on that. It'll be a LinkedIn event, and I'll put it all over all the socials. So
Yeah, living your best virtual life in a virtual space.
I know I got to get used to. I think we joined one, Kathy, like over COVID, and I couldn't figure out how to move. Um,
Well, cool
so
thing is they actually fixed it. So if you have a bunch of new people coming in, they really don't have to move. The organizers have to know how to do a couple of things, but you
awesome.
can actually just say, okay, it's time to sit down now, and then butts in seats.
That's awesome. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. So
Awesome. Great. All
but
right.
yeah, I
So
love this presentation. And I've struggled so much with Power Platform trying to do different things because their assumption of what a beginner would know to be able to do stuff was like this very narrow thing. And if you walked a step off of it, you're like in the abyss. And yeah, and couldn't do anything. But now with Copilot, I find there's so much that I just have to take it. And sometimes I just take a screenshot and show it to Copilot and say, now what? And it comes back and says, okay, go do this. And sometimes it'll explain, yeah, that's not very intuitive, but try this. And or error messages, just tell me what to fix.
I love it for error messages. Even today, I was having a nightmare with a deployment, and it like a connection was broke or something. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, Copilot, help. Things I should probably know after 3 years, but there's too many error messages.
Yeah, exactly. There are too many error messages. There's too much stuff that I don't want to keep in my head. I'm one of those people, unfortunately, who was, bad at math and, didn't like as much as English. But I just, I don't want to spend my time sitting there trying to puzzle something out when I know I can just go there now in 5 seconds and it'll say, oh, yeah, here it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have one of my employees working on a desktop flow, because what we have currently is our HRIS system spits out all of the users, all the employees, and then we import a CSV, and it goes up and updates Active Directory with anything that's changed, from like their title, their department, their country, anything, and then that then synchronized through AD-Sync up to Entra. So because our source of truth is on-prem. So, and he's going to be learning how to do that off a server without it being attended. So I'm giving him a challenge. I already wrote all the scripts that it does everything. So I'm like, I just need you to make this work here now. I did the heavy lifting. Just make it work over here. So it's fun. It's crazy. It's like one of our really important piece of our entire workflow that just runs off of Power Automate.
Yeah.
Yep. So fun. All right. Oh, people are in here. Oh, another quick question.
Where have you seen success on user adoption? What do you mean by success? God, I'm going to such a wishy-washy answer. What are we classing as success, I suppose, is the question. In terms of like users, in terms of happy users.
Are users ever really happy?
I was about to say, because technically, like helping users understand how to use it. Oh, okay. I mean, with it being a charity org, we don't have, we probably should have some kind of surveys to see how people are getting on, really. There's probably something to add into my never-ending to-do list. But in terms of like use cases, I've definitely seen people being more engaged, people knowing what's happening. So when we're having our sort of monthly calls, people are actually reading the newsletter now because at least what they're telling us in conversations is that they're actually loading up the SharePoint page, they're looking what's new, they're going to the newsletter, they're checking what the initiatives are doing if they have interest in it. Whereas I kind of felt like those monthly catch-ups were actually to get everybody on the same page about that, and now they're coming to the meetings already knowing, because it's easily accessible. People aren't missing emails, or maybe they are missing emails, but they've got somewhere to go and catch up. In terms of the flows, my IT manager is much happier because he doesn't have to send a bunch of emails every month.
God,
that's probably the best one. And the Crave survey is probably the most prolific we've seen, because they're not having to, print out surveys, print out surveys, mail out surveys, take them to clinics. They can still go to the clinics, but now they just have like an iPad and they can fill out the form on the iPad. So I think, again, we don't have any data from the pre-flow, but we're definitely anecdotally seeing a higher response rate.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Kendall.
Well, and you mentioned you should probably do some more surveys to get, satisfaction. I find that,
Yes.
that people don't generally like surveys. I mean, your Crave survey, that's a specific thing and point in time.
Yeah, for the clinic setting. I mean, we
Yeah,
have
I'm
one
wondering
called
if
Office Vibe at Curve, and I never fill it in, but please don't tell my boss.
But doing the little incidental kind of things, like putting a button somewhere, is this helpful? Yes or no? And that kind of thing. And then sometimes, it can click deeper if you want to, ask them a few more questions, which they may or may not answer, but at least you get that initial yes, no.
Yeah. I'm trying to think as well, because on SharePoint you can see how often a page is visited, so maybe that's something I could maybe track, or yeah. Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, now that we've actually got it up and running, I'd love to actually see the metrics, if you will. And that's the consultant in me.
Yeah, and see, that's something where I think AI should just be all over that kind of thing. It's like,
just give
tell
me
what
my
I
metrics.
need to know about my site usage. What would you recommend that I fix?
I like that.
Don't know if it can do that yet, but
Yeah, I agree. That would be super helpful. I think it can do a little bit, like SharePoint is starting to come to that, but I don't think we're there yet. But that would be super helpful. Like what can we fix to make more, this site more accessible, or what can we fix to, drive people more to this content, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I think the metrics are coming. It would be really good, Melissa, to see kind of what that looks like for you, for sure.
No, definitely. I'll definitely, I'm going to make a note of that after this call and bring it up. I've got a meeting with our IT manager on Friday and be like, I've got some great ideas.
Yeah.
Thank you, lovely ladies at M365.
For all the good support. No,
Absolutely.
that's very interesting though. It's tricky to make SharePoint sites or even technology for people who either are, like you said, like they come and go pretty quickly, so they're not in there for a long time. So it's got to be super simple and super obvious. But that's tricky as well with the demographics of your user base. It makes it, some people are awesome, some people struggle with technology.
Yeah.
And some people just don't like it, which is fair. Some people work better sort of siloed and not. The idea was this would be the place you would, because again, we don't have company computers because it's a charity, right? So everyone has their own device. But if it was a company, that would be set to your default homepage. That's where you go in. That's where you start your day. So that was the idea. So actually, one of our videos is how to set it up as a homepage. Say you have a browser that you only use for the charity side, to try and remove that barrier. Like, oh, where did I put that link? Or how do I save this as a favorite? Which might sound really trivial, but that is something that we actually had to work through, as people kept losing the link or losing the email. So we're like, hey, what if we tell everyone how to set this as a favorite or a homepage? And that actually got really good reception.
Yeah, you have to go for like the lowest denominator. I had one woman, I'd be like, right click with your right mouse button.
Yep.
Like you just have to. Like it's absolutely 100%. That's been doing some level of support for well over 20 years. So it's like click here, then click there, and help drive it. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, that's really great. Having those videos, like how to do that. That's a good idea for sure.
Well, and just one thing, you're talking about all the volunteers. One of the really interesting projects I worked on when I was still at Microsoft was the Mercy ships, where they take a huge cruise ship, they refit it to be a medical vessel, and they take it all over the world to help people. So, it's like free medical care that they'll take around the world. And they have so many volunteers coming in all the time that they actually built a digital twin of their flagship, the Global Mercy. And then they could bring the volunteers on and they could orient them to the ship just by bringing them into that virtual space. And then they could use it for fundraising and other things. And I mean, we kind of changed some things with where the virtual events are in Teams right now. But even I've seen things like setting up an exhibit or a library. So rather than having to look through a PowerPoint deck, you can actually take your PowerPoint slides and post them around a virtual space. and then give people an invite. And they don't have the persistent spaces yet, but you can create an event and it'll just last forever. So you can just invite people to this past event, and then they're able to go and just kind of walk around the space. And there's something about physicalizing the information in space that tends to help at least certain types of people remember it a lot better. And then as you get people going in groups, then they can kind of talk to each other about what they're seeing.
That's
Oh, yeah,
incredible.
interesting. Doing things like that, like for meal orientations, like in a manufacturing environment, like for safety orientations, things like that would be super useful, huh? Because I know they do right now, they are some of the technologies in some manufacturing, they're going through all of their mills, these old mills, and taking pictures and taking video of the entire thing and building them up as a virtual space. They're doing that for other things, other purposes. But to use it for, in that way would be brilliant, really. Interesting thought.
Awesome. All right. Well, it's 1:00. Again, Melissa, thank you so much
Thank you for
for
having me.
presenting.
It was
This
great.
is fun. This is really
Yeah,
cool.
thank you very
I
much.
love the charity. It's amazing. And what you've done is just awesome for them. So,
Michelle,
all right.
thank
Thanks.
you for coming. Keep coming back.
Yes, I will do.
Yes.
I'm going to check out that book club, and now I'm actually going to go read that book I've had on my list for like 2 years.
100%. Great.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.